Welcome to the Medium in the Middle podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie, the Medium in the Middle. On this podcast, I share my journey as a developing psychic medium, as a Reiki master teacher, as an Akashic record practitioner, and anything else that's thrown my way. Hello, Middlers. Welcome to episode 176. My name is Stephanie. I am the Medium in the Middle. And today we're going to be talking about mediumship. So I had a good question posed to me and I wanted to discuss it on the podcast because I think it is a really great question. But before we jump into the episode, I wanted to start with pulling a card from the mediumship training deck. I haven't pulled from this deck in a while, but whenever I talk about mediumship, I always like to try to remember to pull from this deck. So the first card I pulled from this deck is called the Invisible Shield. And the card reads, have you ever experienced feeling the presence of a loved one who has passed or had a thought of them suddenly come into your mind? Even though they're in the spiritual realm, their spirit body has an aura which lovingly reaches out to yours. Every living thing has an aura, whether here in the physical or on the other side. It's the energy field that surrounds all matter. Whether you're developing psychically or mediumistically, learning about the aura is an important part of the training. Both psychic and mediumistic emanations are received and transmitted through the aura, which in turn can access the specific chakras that are associated with your clairsentience, clairvoyance, and clairaudience. You can learn to expand your aura for all manner of reasons, whether you're about to do a psychic reading, you're going to a concert and want to feel and experience the richness of the music, or even if you're outdoors and just want to heighten the whole experience with nature. As we're all made of energy, you can blend your aura with another person's, a plant's, a trusted pet's, or of course, a spirit's aura. Make sure you pull back your auric field when you're done working, as it will make you less sensitive and enable your aura to refresh. Learning everything about the aura will not only make you a stronger medium, but also a healthier one. Ooh, interesting. The Invisible Shield. And the second card I pulled on live on Instagram. I had you vote what deck you would like me to use this week, and the audience voted for the Rebecca Campbell Work Your Light deck, and I pulled the card for the podcast, The Age of Light. You've been training for this for lifetimes. Mystics and sages throughout the ages have predicted this period in history, and you decided to incarnate in the middle of it. There's no mistake that you are supposed to be here at this time of great change. If you ever feel unprepared or daunted by the path that is calling you, know this. You've been training for this for lifetimes. You're way more than the days that you have breathed through you in this life. You are all of the lifetimes that came before. All of the experiences have polished your soul into the most magnificent expression that is your authentic self. Your soul has many facets. Imagine a fingerprint. Your soul is 1,000,000 times more intricate than that. If you put together all of your fingerprints on all of the people you have been, you would not even come close to fathoming how much of a unique masterpiece you are. You came in with a clear soul path. You came in with wisdom beyond your years. This is a part of you that longs to be seen. This is a part of you that is ready to step forward. This is ready to emerge. This is not the lifetime to stay hidden, but to step forth, be seen, and rise. Ooh, the Age of Light. You've been training for this for lifetimes. As always, if you want to see the cards, I post them on Instagram every week. At Medium in the Middle is my only account. There are lots of scammers, not only people impersonating me, but people impersonating others in the spiritual realm as well. So just know that we all have websites for booking. Never send money in the DMs. No one will ever reach out to you for a reading. If it seems sketchy, it is. If it feels off, it is. Trust your gut for always, but also for random people reaching out to you on the internet. So at Medium in the Middle is my only account. And I promise I've never reached out to you for a reading. It was a scammer. So please just block and report any other accounts. So just for announcements, I have some Reiki training updates. The next Reiki Level 1 is August 19th and 20th. The Level 1 in June, July, and the first one in August all sold out. So that's the next one. If you are waiting to learn Reiki, the next level 2 is July 22nd and 23rd. If you are one of my Reiki students who is looking to move on and become a Reiki practitioner, and back by popular demand is the Advanced Reiki Practitioner Masterclass. I ran this in March and I got a lot of great feedback, and a lot of people said, please run it again. So I'm running it again. The Advanced Reiki Practitioner Masterclass is continued education for about 3 to 6 months after your level 2 course. In this masterclass, we're going to be focusing on expanding your Reiki skills, how you work with energy, and the client experience. So this is really great for growing your clientele and how to make sure that your sessions stand out above the rest. So I will cover the client experience from start to finish. We'll talk about energy movements. We talk about the right and left side of the body. I'll talk about how to have a plan of action for your sessions, how to maximize the healings in your session. So it's a 3-hour masterclass. It's on August 12th. The replay is included. If you can't make it live, everyone will get a copy, but I will leave all the links for that down below in the show notes so that you can register for some Reiki courses. So the question that today's podcast episode is surrounding that also inspired me to kind of talk about this a little bit further. I got a DM of someone asking me, hey Steph, my boyfriend is a skeptic of mediums, and he asked me, why can't you ask spirit specific questions? You can't ask their opinions, advice, or knowledge. And I said, ooh, great question. Thank you for the podcast episode. But in a simple answer, I kind of explained, I was like, mediums are like phone lines, and we all have a different level of clarity in our phone lines. So can you ask specific questions, opinions, advice, and knowledge? Absolutely you can. I don't know if that's a misconception that you can't ask specifics, but I mean, I asked my grandma a missing ingredient in one of her secret recipes and she told me, so it was mayonnaise. But anyways, so you can get pretty specific, but it also depends on who is your phone line. So I find that every medium has different strengths about what information that they can get. Some people can get very, very specific details. Some people can describe your loved ones really, really well. Some people are really good at personality. Some people will get specifics like names. And all of that information is available, but everyone is different at what their skills are. But on that note, I have a few things to say about this. I forget what series it was. I think it was a few years ago now. But there was this man who was going to all of these different mediums, and he was testing them. So he would go and say, I want to talk to my dad, and I want my dad to say left ear. If my dad doesn't bring up my left ear, then, this person's a scam. And it made me so angry because, of course, no medium talked about his left ear, because why would they? Spirit is smart and they don't waste their time. They gave him so much more evidence that he completely ignored because he was just waiting for them to say left ear. So I feel like if you're going to test a medium and say, like, I want you to say this, if it is completely irrelevant, like the left ear, then I just feel that it's not worth spirit's energy to communicate that. The phone line is not the clearest. So if they're going to spend their energy on trying to communicate with the medium, and the medium is spending their energy trying to communicate with the spirit, we're going for the most important information. We're going for the highest good. We're going for what you need right now. And what you need right now might not be talking about your left ear. Now, can you ask spirit to say specific things? Absolutely. I've talked about this in the podcast. When I did a group mediumship reading, the story that sticks out to me is I ask everyone to call in their loved ones, and then I ask them all to think of something, an experience, a memory, or something you would like your loved one to say or talk about. So this is great to say, if grandma talks about her slippers, then I'll know it's her. That's a perfect example of something you could request of spirit. That's not a trick. That's saying like, hey, Graham, talk about your slippers. I'll know it's you. So I had someone in a group reading at the end come up to me and she said, you started talking about a red and white barn door. And she said, I specifically asked my grandpa to get you to say red door. And I was like, oh, wow, that's crazy. And she was like, I can't believe that you actually said it. So when you set your intention that you want spirit to speak about a specific something that has meaning to you, I feel like that's different than like a testing someone and getting them to say left ear. And the other thing that this question brought up was around free will. So, like anything in spirituality, the Akashic Records, spirit, anything, you always have free will and they will never trump free will. So, I don't know, when I read opinions, advice, or knowledge, I instantly went to like, ooh, they're not going to tell you what to do. So when I used to read the Akashic Records, I would always start this in my speech. My speech was always, so just so you know, the Akashic Records can't tell you what to do, so I don't recommend asking what questions because of free will. You always have a choice. I was like, you can ask them, but I say, like, if you say, like, oh, like, should I quit my job? They won't say, yes, quit your job, because that goes against free will. They'll say, okay, why do you want to quit your job? What are you thinking about? What happens if you stay? What happens if you go? It'll still be a good conversation, but by the end of the conversation, don't have your expectations being that the Akasha is going to say, yes, quit your job. Spirit's similar. If you ask grandma what you should do, she might give you, a little this, a little that, but they won't ever tell you what to do because they can't go against free will. And they usually show up quite in their personality. So if grandma was wishy-washy in person when she was still Earthside, she's going to show up that same way. If grandma was bossy when she was Earthside, she might still show up the same way, but they still will very rarely tell you what to do. They might say like, oh, this isn't going to make me happy, or oh, I wouldn't enjoy that, or oh, you knew I wouldn't like that. But free will is kind of like untouchable. So there's never any shoulds. So I remember, especially with the Akashic Records, I would tell people you can't say like what questions, like what should I do? What's next? What's the best thing for me? So people would just say should questions, like should I do this? Should I do this? Is this a good idea? If you think it's a good idea, it's a good idea. What do you think? So there's never like such a hard right and wrong. But I thought this was a really good question, and it really brought up like, I love skeptics. I love reading for skeptics. I love meeting skeptics because we all start off as skeptics, really. Like there was so many things had to happen to me in order for me to be like, is this real? Like even back when I first discovered what mediumship was and I was watching the TV shows and, reading the books and all those things, I'm like, like, do I believe this? And I was a big skeptic. So I like when people ask these questions because it gives us the opportunity to have really good conversations around the things that make people not believe mediums. I constantly get asked to like review different shows like the Tyler Henry show or, do you think this medium is real? Do you think this medium is real? And I'm sure I'll do a whole podcast on this eventually, but I don't believe in, what do they call it? Cold readings or blue readings. I'm not sure what they call it, where like I can just read your body language and make something up. And based on the percentages of what people's names were, based on the time of your loved one passing away, I could guess that his name was Michael or John because 68% of people were named Michael or John between the dates of 1965 and 1985. And I know that your loved one, like, you guys are giving us way too much credit to think that I can, number one, know all these random facts, have prepped your Facebook that well to memorize it, have figured out who you wanted to even talk to and who was passed away, done hours and hours of research and memorization to then sit in front of you and cold read you or make some things up. I really think that is very, very, very rare. Do I think no one does that? I've met some sketchy people. Do I think that's the norm? Absolutely not. But I do think, again, kind of going back to what I said earlier, everyone has a different connection. Everyone has a different strong suit. So I like to personally listen to podcast episodes of other mediums doing readings because I like to see how they read. What is their strong suit? Some people are really good at the conversation side. Some people, like listening to Teresa Caputo, she says so many things that are so generalized. So generalized. She'll be like, oh, I see a rose. A rose could mean they pass suddenly. Passing suddenly could mean that they passed suddenly. You just wasn't expecting it, or it was sudden for them, or it was sudden for you, or it was just a long time, but it seems sudden. You're like, huh, that's a lot of meanings for the same thing. But it's interesting how she always pulls a message out of it. Now, do I think she's cold reading? No. Do I think she throws a big net and then narrows it in because that's how her telephone line works? Yes. So it's just interesting to hear how certain people work and what their strong suit is. I love the skeptics when they ask questions because if they're open for a conversation, I love to have conversations. I will explain everything to you. I will give you the 177 episodes I have of talking about my experience with you. I will tell you what happened to me. I'll tell you what's undeniable for me in my experience. I'll tell you what I know based on my experience with other mediums. And it's interesting to see, like, you don't have to believe this. I'm not here to convince you. I feel like you can believe what you want. When I was first developing, I used to say this all the time on the podcast in the beginning, people would say, I don't believe in mediums, Steph, but I believe in you. And I know you wouldn't lie. So it was kind of like, okay, I don't know what that means, but okay. Yeah, I'm not a liar. And you know I'm not a liar. So does that mean you believe in mediums now? Always nice to have a conversation, see what's going on. I liked that. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Get a little mediumship chat in. If you haven't already, please leave the podcast a rating and a review. It really helps me grow the podcast. And if you think someone maybe is a skeptic in your life that might like this podcast, send it to them and see what they think, see what conversations come of it. If you haven't already, subscribe. I release new episodes every Wednesday. If you want to book any appointments with me or follow me on social media, it's at Medium in the Middle is where you will find me online. All of my bookings are done through my website. I will leave all the links for you down below in the show notes. But until next Wednesday, Middlers, when I see you in your ears, I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next Wednesday. Bye!